Hi, I'm Alicia Kinchlow with Kinchlow Law, and today we're going to talk about school choice, namely who gets to make the decision about where your child is going to go to school. Now, as always, these videos are for educational purposes only. They are not legal advice. You should always consult with an attorney licensed in your state about the issues specific to your case. Now, in a custody case, one of the most contentious issues is where will the child go to school? And this can actually come up even after a custody case has been decided. Sometimes it's 3, 4, 5 years later, and your child needs to now transition to the next school, and you cannot agree on where that child is going to go to school, either because you both have decided that the public school system is not working for your child, or one of the parents suggests a private school or some other school that they think is going to be better for your child's needs. So when it comes down to making that decision, there are several things foundationally that you need to consider. Does one parent have sole legal custody, or do you have shared legal custody? So legal custody is the right of the parties to make decisions of major issues in the child's life, and that includes religion, medical, and educational decisions. Now, if one person has sole legal custody, that gives them the right to make those decisions. But if the parties share that legal custody, no matter what the physical custody split is, you guys both have the right to make that decision together. And sometimes this is where the issues come into play. Now, when you are thinking about this type of situation, the most important thing to do is consider the timing. If you know that your child's school goes from K through 5 or K through 6, and you need to make a decision about where they'll be going to middle school, you don't want to do this in the summertime, right before 6th grade starts or 7th grade starts. You want to have done this about 1.5 years before. And the reason I say that is because you need to have an understanding of how long it takes for you to get through court should you guys not be able to come up with an agreement yourselves. So make sure you give yourself plenty of time to be thinking about this. Also, you want to look at when will schools stop accepting applications. So some schools it's January, the year before that grade would start. Some is February, some it may be before then. So make sure that you give yourself ample time to consider your options and consider how long it may take for you to go through the court and have the court make a decision for you. Now, taking a step back, because this goes hand in hand with proving your case in court, you really want to do your research. So a few things that you should make sure you consider when you are deciding where your child is going to go to school is what's in the best interest of your child. If your child has an IEP, which is an individualized educational plan, you want to make sure that any school you choose has the ability to make any accommodations that they may need. So whether it's a gifted IEP or if your child has some other type of special needs, make sure you're doing your research and that school can actually accommodate them. Think about any extracurricular activities that your child has been participating in or wants to be able to participate in. Does the school have a lacrosse team if your child has been in lacrosse all these years? Make sure that you are doing your research in that area. And then if both schools, the one that you're suggesting and the one that the other parent really wants to have the child to go to, have similar programs, see if you can find out which program works better or does better. So make sure you're doing your research when it comes down to just what the curriculum has to offer. I would suggest meeting with the schools, actually going into the schools, getting affiliated with the schools, and inviting the other parent to do the same. Make sure you're keeping the lines of communication open and that both parents have an ability to really visit the school and get information. Aside from making the process a lot smoother and maybe finding out that, hey, I really do like this school a lot better than the one that I was looking at, it will make everything a lot easier when the judge asks whether or not you guys have really even tried to come to an agreement. Now, some of the other things that you want to consider are just some practical things. How far away is each school from each parent's home? And in taking with that, you want to think about what is your actual custody schedule. So if you guys share physical custody where you have it on a 50-50 split, and the child is rotating week on, week off, that might be a little bit easier. But if you have a schedule where you're doing a 2-2-3 split, where the child is with one parent on, for example, Monday and Tuesday, the other parent Wednesday and Thursday, and you guys alternate the weekends, having a school that's far away may make it difficult. Having a school where the child will need to be bused to the school may make it difficult because maybe the school will not supply a bus from 2 different locations. So those are things you need to consider. And if it's really important to you, you might want to consider either altering the custody schedule and maybe going to week on, week off to make it a little bit easier, or making sure that you can make the appropriate travel accommodations to get your child back and forth to school. Now, in addition to the travel time, you want to think about before school care and after school care if one of the parents will need it. So this goes into the work schedules of each parent. Now, we know that during COVID, a lot of people are working from home. A lot of kids are going to school virtually, so things are a little bit different. But you want to think about past COVID. If you're not going to be working from home anymore and you have to commute to work for an hour each way, you need to be considering that, because that is definitely something that the other side is going to bring up in court. Yes, this is feasible right now, but once, father goes back to work or once mom goes back to work, there's no way they can get the child back and forth to school. And then what happens? So you want to make sure that you're thinking about the travel time. You want to think about your schedule and the other parent's schedule if the other parent has the child during the school week. And you want to think about what that time looks like for the child. If they have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning now to catch a bus at 6:15 in order to get to school in time, that is something that the court will look at as well, especially when we're talking about schools where there's maybe not a lot of difference in between how they seem to perform. So you really want to make sure that you've kind of thought each of these things out, kind of physically map out how long it will take to get back and forth, consider traffic. All of those things are going to help your case leaps and bounds. All right, the next thing you want to think about, aside from that, is cost. So if you are suggesting a school where there's tuition, you want to think about whether or not you can pay that tuition by yourself, whether you will need the assistance of the other parent. And you also want to make sure that when you are enrolling the child into the school, that you are not making a unilateral decision when it comes to a school with tuition. And the reason I mention that is even if you are receiving child support from the other parent, generally tuition is something that can be added on top of that and they can be responsible for a portion of that. But if you make the decision unilaterally or against their wishes, a court may not order them to contribute to the school tuition. So you want to make sure that you are getting the input and the agreement of the other parents, or at least getting a court order later where the child is allowed to go to the school where there is tuition. And again, and kind of thinking about the timing of everything, waiting too long or too close to when the child is supposed to be enrolled may cause you to forfeit the opportunity to apply for subsidies or scholarships, which can also affect your case. So again, thinking well in advance of when your child needs to transition into school or into that next level of school, you'll be able to kind of make sure that you have all your ducks in a row. Think about sibling relationships. So if one child is in school there and your child wants to go to that school, and if it makes it easier, if it makes sense, or because one of your other children goes to this school already, that next child will be able to matriculate into that school under a grandfathering clause, you want to make sure that you're considering that as well. That might make things a lot easier. It might make the tuition less. It might be easier on the household to have the kids going to one school and not several different schools. Think about that too. That's a feasibility issue. That is something that the courts are going to also give some weight to or some credence to. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have children going to separate schools. It just means that that's one of the other factors you really want to make sure you're considering. Another thing you want to think about is whether your child actually even wants to go. So the older your child gets, the more the court is going to look to their input. If they are fairly stable where they are, if they're happy, if they're doing well in school, if the school is able to support their needs, and especially if you're looking to change their school in the middle of middle school or in the middle of high school, the court may not order if they're very stable, if there isn't a good reason to do so. So you really want to think about your child's best interest, not just whether or not the school seems better on paper, but how is your child already performing? Are they in extracurricular activities right now that are making them happy, that may not transition well into the next school? So those are all things that you want to make sure that you're giving some guidance to. Now I'm going to kind of circle back to what I mentioned in the beginning, which is going to be timing. Timing is exceptionally important. The courts are not generally very happy when you wait until 2 months before school starts or a month before you need to give a school an answer to have them come in and make this decision for you. You need to understand how long it takes for a case to get through the courts in your county. And you can do this by speaking to an attorney who is often in court in that area, because they'll tell you how long it would take and how much leeway you need to give yourself when filing a motion, whether it's a petition to modify custody or if it's for special relief or expedited relief, how much time you need to give yourself to be able to have the court come in and help you guys make this decision. And again, the courts really don't want to be the ones deciding where your child is going to go to school. It's something that a parent should be able to make, or a party should be able to make, considering all the issues that are involved in their various parts of their lives. There's their work schedule, the home schedule, the busing schedule. All of these things are things that you can make a better decision about and be more aware of than a court can do in an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, in a day. So really consider how much time you need, and then having all those things in a row. Another thing that an attorney in your area can help you with is with the way that you present your evidence. So again, some of the things that we already discussed, you want to make sure you're able to get them reduced to admissible evidence or testimony, but you also want to think about rankings. So rankings of a school is something that often comes into play, but you need to understand how your judge or how your court looks at rankings from different websites. Now, historically, some courts have used greatschools.org or niche.org or .com to help them figure out which school is better, to kind of give some type of objective measurement about the school. Some judges don't accept this evidence. So you want to make sure you have an understanding, either through an agreement with the opposing party or counsel, or by with the judge, about what types of evidence they will admit in terms of ranking a school or being able to compare the schools. So you want to have that prepared ahead of time and understand that ahead of time. You want to consider submitting additional information from the school. If they have information about the programs they offer, if they have a plan, especially in the age of COVID, if you want to be able to present their plan for how they are going to safely get children back into schools. Those are things that are generally reduced to writing that you can find a way to get admitted into court and get heard as evidence. Also, to go an extra step would be to seek out having an administrator from the school be able to provide some testimony about the programs they offer. So this will help get some of that information that I just mentioned admitted into court as evidence, but it will also provide an opportunity for the judge to ask questions, for you to ask questions, and opposing counsel to ask questions just exactly about what the school offers, and less of what you would be trying to present would be hearsay. So again, a couple of things that you really want to consider when making a school choice decision, and when preparing your case for having a court make that decision. As always, it's generally in the best interest of any family for those people to make those decisions amongst themselves. But when you can't do that, that's when you can get the help of an attorney and the courts to help you make that decision. Preparation, timing, all of that is key. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you have questions that you would like to ask me, you can look in the show notes and go to consultation.com, and you can schedule a consultation with our office and speak to one of the attorneys from our office. But as always, make sure you speak to an attorney about the facts specific to your case, because every case is different and your child is unique, and you want to make sure you're doing what's in their best interest. Hit subscribe and you'll be able to get notifications about other videos like this when they drop, for more helpful tips about custody, support, and divorce. Until next time, take care.